Hey there, I'm Shahid, if you don't know me. And if you do know me, well, let's just get into why I'm making this video. I just started collecting records a couple months ago, this summer of 2021. Let's call it the spring of 2021. And I consider myself a record collector now. And so in this episode, I wanted to tell you the story of how that came about and my experience so far collecting records. So it all started when I was searching for a Mother's Day gift. So what, Mother's Day is in May. I was in a used bookstore. We had taken the kids out to the park, and I knew I hadn't got a Mother's Day gift yet. There's a few days to go, and I knew there was a used bookstore around the corner. So I took the kids into the used bookstore. We were going to look for a gift. So my wife was browsing somewhere else, and I took the kids to buy recipe books for my wife. And we found a couple recipe books, and after I paid for those recipe books, on the way out, I saw this box of records, vinyl records, those things that you put on a record player in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s until CDs came in the, I guess, 90s and started to phase out vinyl. They were more portable. They potentially sounded better. And they probably lasted longer. And then, of course, digital audio without CDs came to follow. But I knew that these were records. I didn't know much more about that. I never really thought about collecting records. But on a whim, in that bookstore in New Westminster, British Columbia, I saw this box of used records. And it was a tiny box. There was maybe like 30 records in there. And I just decided to flip through it. They were not in great condition, but I think they were like $2 each or something. And so I flipped through them. And I saw a few things that caught my eye. So I'm going to take you through what caught my eye and what I ended up buying on that first day. It was 5 or 6 records, and I bought on a whim, not to become a record collector, but just because they were there and they were interesting and they were cheap, I just decided to buy them. First record that caught my eye, and this is a beauty if you're looking at it, it's Beach Boys' Endless Summer. I'm a huge Beach Boys fan. I can't necessarily say that I knew the record before I picked it up and bought it, but I certainly knew the Beach Boys, and looking at the back of the record, I could see that there were a lot of songs that I knew. Surfin' Safari, Surfer Girl. What else did I know here? Fun, Fun, Fun. I Get Around. And if you don't know the Beach Boys, you don't know any of these songs. Don't Worry, Baby, California Girls, Help Me, Rhonda. So these are all songs that I knew. So this record caught my eye, not only because it looks great, so colorful, but 2, because it's the Beach Boys, and 3, there's a lot of songs there that I knew. So decided to pick that one up. Next one that caught my eye was Gordon Lightfoot Summer or Sunday Concert. And I don't think I'd really listened to Gordon Lightfoot before I got this record, but I know what I did do was recently, prior to buying that, was watch a documentary on Gordon Lightfoot that was on CBC Gem, and it was basically about his life and his music, and I was very interested in him as a musician and his place in Canadian music history. He's one of the most famous Canadian artists that has ever lived, and partially is responsible for putting Canadian music on the map. And so I thought, for a couple bucks, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to listen to it. I don't think I've listened to this one yet. In the same vein, I picked this one up. Now this is Bachman Turner Overdrive 2. And I didn't really know much about Bachman Turner Overdrive before I picked up this album. But what I did know is that they were a famous Canadian band, and what I had heard, a rock band from the 70s, 80s. And what I knew is that they had a couple songs that were really popular. And on this record, Taking Care of Business. Every Day. No, it's called Taking Care of Business, and I thought, hey, let's give them a try. They're all in pretty rough condition, but specifically this Bachman Turner Overdrive. Thought I'd pick it up anyway, give it a listen, see if it had, some appeal. One more Canadian album I picked up. Again, same thing as Bachman Turner Overdrive. I hadn't listened to this person's music, Anne Murray, Greatest Hits, but I'd certainly heard the name Anne Murray, and I knew that she had a place in Canadian music history as well. This one was in good shape, and I thought, Greatest Hits album. Hey, I can get an introduction to Anne Murray just by picking up this one album. So not only is it me buying this music and potentially being a record collector, and again, I wasn't really thinking about becoming a record collector, but I thought I could learn this music through this record. Side note, I didn't have a record player at the time. So the last record that I found in that bunch was not a Canadian artist, but certainly a famous artist and an influential artist. And this is Chuck Berry. So this album is Chuck Berry Flashback, and essentially I think another greatest hits album. And he's got probably a bunch of favorite songs, but Johnny B. Good is the one that most people will recognize. And I thought, greatest hits album from one of the foremost rock and rollers out there. Why not? So all in all, these, I think 6 records cost me, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 records cost me less than $20. So less than don't make me do math here. Less than $4 a piece. So yeah, a bit more than $2 a piece, but less than $20. And I thought, hey, why not? That's something that I'm not going to miss the $20. As maybe as insensitive as that sounds, I'm not going to miss the $20, and maybe I'll get a record player and listen to these and see where it goes. And that's what I did. So I shortly after this bought a record player, and the first one I listened to was the first one I mentioned, the Beach Boys. I didn't learn much about records and what to do, how to clean them, and what to do when you're playing them. I literally just went on Amazon, bought an Audio-Technica record player for $100 and something, and dusted off the record and put it on, and it sounded great. And what was really interesting to me was when I listened to the song Help Me Rhonda, which I had actually listened to, I guess, recently in advance of buying the record, I noticed a difference between the song. Now, one was there was different harmonies, different singing. So over time, they had either changed the song or changed the mixing and balance of the music as it came out digitally. So this analog version on the record was actually, it sounded different. Like the singing was a bit different. But I also started to hear instruments differently. Like that is one of the differences I've learned through some research after the fact that you can hear in older records is that one, it's old mixes and it's not remastered for digital listening, and two, records could sound more full and wholesome, and they have more range. You'll be able to hear more things. And I noticed that right away, whether it was in my head or not. So that is the story of how I became a record collector. And as the title of this episode indicates, I am now addicted to collecting records. I have, from that day, and since that day, I don't think I have stopped. There hasn't been a week where I haven't bought a record, and there have been many weeks since then that I have bought many records. Again, that is my story of getting addicted to vinyl, and that's the first story that I wanted to share in this series of videos. And hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll tune in again for my next story and join me along this journey. And I'm sure there are other record collectors out there. I've learned that record collecting is popular again. Of course, it was popular in the 60s, 70s, 80s because it was the only format that you could get music on. But I saw a graph and I read in an article that over the last 5 years, the number of records being sold and I guess collected has increased every year, and it continues to go up. And I'm sure there are many reasons for that, which we'll get into another day. But I'm not the only one out there collecting records, and I doubt I'm the only new record collector, because this boom is likely people like me as well who have decided, hey, why not? This could be a cool hobby. Join me on my journey. You might be entertained by my stories. You might learn something. You might disagree with what I have to say. Whatever it is, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you come along with the journey. Thanks for listening.